All right, now turning to the Tamakis, because I attended day 3 of his trial earlier this week, and I wrote about it, and Lynn, who's in the chat, published it on the Good Oil, which was very, very kind of her. This article comes to us from the Centrist, and they never tell us who the journalist is behind their articles. I don't know these guys, although I did reach out to them a couple of weeks ago, and they didn't get back to me. They have hit me up in the past to promote some of their work, and which I've been happy to do because I've agreed with it, but I don't know anything about them and who they are. Anyway, they write, Brian Tamaki heads to court over COVID charges. This came out a little while ago. 3 years after the pandemic, Destiny Church leader Brian Tamaki is in an Auckland courtroom facing trial for allegedly violating COVID restrictions at multiple 2021 protests. Tamaki, his wife Hannah, and 2 other organisers are charged with holding gatherings that defied lockdown orders, drawing thousands to the events. A reasonable person would not remain or encourage other people to attend, said Crown Prosecutor Matthew Nathan, fuck that guy, referencing restrictions meant to curb the virus's spread. What I would like everyone to remember here is whether or not we agree with Brian Tamaki, whether or not we believe in the religion that he practices, we should always keep in mind that we are talking about a man of the cloth. I think inherently any priest deserves at least the benefit of the doubt. They are people who hold respectable positions in society. They are people who, to one degree or another, help other people. And for that, we should always be looking to treat them with a certain amount of respect by right until proven otherwise. I wrote about my attendance at his court hearing on day 3. I was fucking shocked at what I saw. You should read this on my Substack. What did Uncle Simon write? It was absolutely fascinating for many reasons, I wrote. My biggest takeaway is that attack is the best form of defense. It was abundantly clear from Mr. Manfield. Manfield is a KC. He's the Tamakis defense barrister. Line of questioning that it is not the Tamakis on trial at all. Instead, it is the state culpable for overreach. I believe that 3 years after the offences the Tamakis are accused of occurred, it is my opinion that the state and its corrupt instruments would have been wiser to drop these prosecutions altogether. I think that what it really comes down to is that we have here a man of the cloth who stood up for human rights and is being prosecuted for it. Meanwhile, the architect of those human rights abuses is receiving a damehood from the Prince of the Realm at Windsor Castle. I think that is iniquitous. This man stood up for New Zealanders. He stood up for civil rights. He stood up for freedom of association and freedom of speech. And for that, he is being prosecuted maliciously. It is wrong. I go into some of the conversations that were had. What was really interesting in the cross-examination of the police detective, which I lay out here, is how they were absolutely focused on Brian Tamaki, his wife, and their friends, and no one else. Some of the details of her testimony was absolutely shocking. Another aspect that I didn't go into in the article, but I'm mentioning to you now, is that there were no media in the courtroom. I asked someone who's been attending every day, who I vaguely know, if he had seen any of the reporters. I showed him photographs of the Herald's guy, Craig Capitan. Have you seen this man? Have you seen any other journalists? None of them. There is a reason for that, in my opinion. I believe that New Zealand journalists are deliberately not covering this trial because the testimony from police officers like this embarrasses the establishment. It embarrasses Andrew Costa. It embarrasses Jacinda Ardern. And journalists love those people and are protecting them. I write, I expect there will be more examinations like this as the trial continues, but to me it is case closed. The rule of law, such as it was during COVID, clearly breached New Zealand human rights. Leaving that rather significant fact aside for a moment, a fundamental principle of democracy is equality before the law. And in this case, it is abundantly clear that the Tamakis are not guilty of the crimes that have been fabricated to prosecute them, or at least not any more guilty than anyone else. It seems to me they are instead guilty of publicly defying the will of then Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and her establishment cronies are committed to using any legislation that they can concoct to prosecute them for it. I believe that to be true. I think that this is absolutely unjust. I think it is corrupt. I don't think that we should be living in a society where shit like this happens to a fucking priest while Jacinda Ardern gets a bloody damehood at Windsor Castle. Let me know what you think in the chat. I'm pretty angry about this, so I'm going to shut up and let you guys talk and listen to some music. I'll respond to it in a minute when I've calmed down.